Howdy, I'm Lance, host of Join the Journey Radio, and I want to welcome you to this special Join the Journey Radio fireside webinar presentation entitled Getting Real, Ministering More Effectively to LDS Singles. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to give you a vision for ministering more effectively to singles. And it's based on a book that I wrote by the same title. You can get that book from Amazon. And I so wanted to give away the book for free on Amazon, but Amazon's not set up that way. So you get to pay a little money if you're getting it from Amazon. But since I want this to really be free and available to everybody, you can also get a free copy in PDF format, and you can get that from the Join the Journey Radio website. Just go to jointhejourneyradio.com/books, and there you can find the link to download the free PDF copy of this book. Of course, if you want to pay money for a different format, hey, more power to you. Because I ain't making money off this. I charge the absolute minimum that Amazon would let me charge. Because I have no desire to get rich off of this book. My desire is to give the information and make it available to people. And that's why I put the book on Amazon, so it would have a wider distribution and a wider reach. I'm putting in this presentation a lot of the essential information that you find in that book. That said, if you want a steady reference or that you can come back to time and time again, or you just like having the book, go get the book. Now, the beautiful part about the vision that I'm about to share with you is that to minister effectively to the singles within your ward or stake, you don't need any special programs. You don't need any special groupings. You don't need any special organization beyond the basic organizational structure that the church has already provided. And the method that I'm going to promote to you today uses what is already in place in most stakes in the church. There's also no new burden on leadership. So there are things that leaders can do to minister more effectively to singles. That said, you don't have any huge additional burden that's going to take up inordinate amounts of time. You don't need to have any special meetings where you specifically talk, although you can if you want. I mean, you're welcome to have a special meeting where you talk specifically about singles and singles issues, but you don't need that to minister effectively to singles. In the course of what leaders already do, they can incorporate actions that will promote and propel more effective ministering to LDS singles within their ward and stakes. Now, this presentation is not just for leadership, it's for everybody, because as I'm going to explain as I unfold this vision of how to minister more effectively to singles, everyone has a part to play. So, whether you're a married leader or a single leader, or you're simply just a single adult in your ward and stake, there is a role for every one of these individuals to play to make this vision really work and take off. And I know that it works because I've actually implemented it in a previous stake where I was the stake single adult rep. And I know that this works because I've seen it work with my own eyes. So, if you're in leadership and you're wondering, we have all these activities and hardly anyone attends, nobody seems interested in anything, how do we grow our singles program? How do we grow our singles group? The vision that I'm going to unfold to you in this presentation will help answer that question. Okay? Now, like I said, I've actually seen this work. I've been in positions of leadership as a single adult. I've served in a number of different callings. It basically runs the gamut. I've been single for over 25 years. So, yeah, I think I know what I'm talking about when, I present this vision to you of how to minister more effectively to singles. So, to get started, I want to talk about 3 principles that are guiding my approach here. Okay, the first is we're going to include singles as fellow citizens in the kingdom. A lot of the challenges that singles face as a part of LDS singles life has to do with a culture that's centered around family, which by definition singles don't have. So there's a lot of identity issues that are at play when you're single in a family-centered culture. And including singles as fellow citizens in the kingdom helps alleviate a lot of those identity issues that come from our culture. Now, I think a more lasting solution is to change the culture. Let's not have a family-centered culture. Let's have a Christ-centered culture, where the mark of belonging is not being married with kids, but the mark of belonging is rather, are you making and keeping as many covenants with God as you can? If you are, welcome. You belong. And that sort of cultural shift, I see the brethren heading in that direction. But that's going to take its time. So in the meantime, we're going to promote that cultural change, and we're going to help alleviate a lot of the identity issues that singles have from the current family-centered culture by including them as fellow citizens of the kingdom. We're just going to treat people like people. We're not going to make a big deal out of, your social status or your marital status or background or anything like that. We just treat people like people. Second principle, support rather than supply needs. I think, the brethren expect single adults to be just that, adults. And part of being adult is being self-reliant and taking care of your own needs and not always looking to other people to provide the needs that you have in your life. So the role for, leadership at the stake in the ward level is to support rather than supply needs. Because oftentimes, singles struggle with being the only one. And when you're in a marriage relationship, you've got a companion, and hopefully your marriage is going well enough to where you want to support each other. Well, singles don't have that. By definition, they don't have that. And so, providing that added means of support so they're not the only one can be very, very helpful. And the third principle that's going to guide my approach is let's promote progress toward eternal goals. So people may be single, people may have been really hurt, whether it's by divorce or by the continual grind of the dating scene and they've never been married, or they're hurt because they lost their spouse and they're now widowed. Whatever the reason for them being single, there's a lot of pain associated with being single. And, because of that pain, some singles just, swear off marriage. They say, I don't want anything more to do with it. But we know that, for a lot of singles, they haven't given up that hope. They still believe that a good marriage partner is out there for them somewhere. And so, a good role for those who want to minister more effectively to LDS singles is to promote progress toward eternal goals. We're here to support you as you go and get that next essential ordinance, because make no mistake, we're talking here about not just, getting people married so they can satisfy their own personal needs. We're talking about the creation of righteous families that can promote the purposes of the Lord in this and future generations. So, we want to promote progress toward eternal goals, helping singles achieve that next essential ordinance that they need for their eternal journey. So, to start off with, what typically happens in a stake is that, they read the handbook and they see that stakes are charged with responsibility for ministering to singles. And so the stakes have a lot of stuff going on. So typically what they do is they're going to pass the buck to the wards. And the wards, they're like, and so what do? They don't do anything because they don't know what to do. No one's training them. Oh, by the way, if you want to pass this video around as a training video, be my guest, because there's lots of great stuff in here that can help train people to minister more effectively to LDS singles. So the end effect is that nothing happens. There are needs that singles have that don't get met. Additionally, there are a lot of stakes that have stake single adult committees, and these committees typically revolve into a planning group. So we're going to fill a calendar with activities, and we're going to plan those activities, and then whatever happens is what happens. And that typically is not very effective for ministering to singles because you're only going to get a small group of singles that show up. And, so everyone else that doesn't show up, their needs are not getting met. There's no outreach efforts to individual singles to know what their needs are. So even if you wanted to plan for the needs of the singles, it's really hard to do that if you don't know who they are and what it is that they need. So, yeah, that's typically what happens. And everything just kind of breaks down. The vision that I'm going to provide for you in this presentation breaks through all of that. And it creates an environment in which the needs of individual single adults are met. And when you start meeting the needs of individual singles, don't doubt for a moment that isn't going to grow. So you just plant the seed and you keep watering it, and you're going to watch this thing grow and grow and grow until it becomes humongous. It becomes huge. And then that's where the real excitement comes in. When you see this, it's growing, it's huge, and it could be self-sustaining, but you got to keep watering, right? You got to keep nourishing. So let's talk about how to do that. Okay, as I said before, there's basically three main parts or roles that get played for effective ministering to LDS singles. So there's ministering by stakes, there's ministering by wards, and there's ministering by the individual singles themselves. Let's talk first about the stake role. Okay, so some people, they look at the stake membership roles and they conclude the stakes can't possibly be ministering to singles. And, it's understandable why they think this because, you look at these roles, and typically, in most states, you're going to have at least 1,000 people on that membership role. And so here you've got these stake leaders who look at these roles and they're like, you can't possibly minister to over 1,000 people. And you're right. But the idea that then, therefore, stakes can't minister to singles is a faulty conclusion. It's a convenient lie. It's convenient because it allows busy leaders. And let's face it, people that are in leadership in the church, they are busy people. The people in leadership on the ward level are busy. People at leadership on the stake level are even more busy. So, saying that stakes can't minister effectively to singles is a convenient lie. Convenient in that it allows these busy leaders to rationalize inaction. We're not going to do anything because we can't do anything. And so they rationalize that in their head. And it's a lie because there are things that stakes can really do to minister effectively to singles. And we're going to talk about that right now. Now, obviously, stake leaders can't minister to every individual single adult. Okay, if you've got 1,000 plus people on the roll, it's obvious you're not going to be able to minister to every one of those people individually. But that doesn't mean you can't do anything that's meaningful and effective. So let's talk about some of the things that the stake can do to minister more effectively to singles. Okay, let's start with the stake president. Okay, the stake presidents are very, very busy people, and I know that because my current calling is stake executive secretary. So I'm like the administrative assistant to the stake president, and that means, I get a really inside look as to, how the man spends his time and all that he's pretty much doing. So, I can tell you he's a very, very busy man. But there's a very effective way that stake presidents can promote effective ministering to singles. And one of the most important aspects of that is providing a sense of accountability. Because remember what I said before, what typically happens is stakes pass the buck on to the wards don't know what to do, they don't do anything, and then you've got a bunch of singles in the stake and their needs aren't getting met. The way to break that cycle is to provide a sense of accountability. So, in essence, the stake president provides that accountability, and he's poised to do it because one of the things that the stake president does on a regular basis is hold regular interviews with each of the bishops and branch presidents in his stake. So, during those interviews, if the stake president would just spend a few minutes asking and discussing the answer to 2 questions, there would be accountability, and that accountability would then roll over into action toward filling the needs of singles. The first question is, how are the singles in your ward? And when you ask this question, you need to focus on names. Let's talk about names. Let's talk about people. Let's talk about individuals. What do you know about these individuals? And the second question that needs to be asked is, what are you and the ward council doing to help meet their needs? So you ask these two questions and talk about it. It only takes a few minutes. It provides a sense of accountability. Now, granted, the first time the bishops hear this question, they're likely going to be unprepared for it, because if they're not doing anything to, meet the needs of single adults within their ward, then they're not going to really have much of an answer. But if you keep asking the question, and this is so key, you've got to keep asking the question with each and every interview you have. And if you do that, the bishops are going to get a clue that says, hey, I know he's going to ask me about this when I go on to get the interview with him. I better have a better answer than what I've been having. So that encourages them to go back to their wards, get with their ward council, talk with the ward leadership about, okay, who are the singles in our ward, and what can we do to help meet their needs? And that way, when the bishop goes back for that interview with the stake president, he knows he's going to have some better answers for those questions that he knows are going to happen. So the key to this is the stake president consistently asking those questions, interview after interview after interview after interview. Just make it an expected thing. And that will bring a sense of accountability into play that will help meet the needs of singles within your stake. It doesn't take a lot of time. Like I said, you only need to spend a few minutes during your interview, but what a big difference those few minutes can make. Let's talk now about the stake high council, because there's often a member of the stake high council who's tasked with responsibility over the singles. And usually what they end up doing is, supporting the stake singles committee. They attend meetings, they help plan the activities, they help pull off the logistics that need to happen for the activity to happen, that sort of thing. There's more that a high council member can do to help support and minister more effectively to Latter-day Saint singles. Often, the high council member is tasked with a speaking assignment. So they go around to different units in the stake, and they speak as part of the sacrament meeting in the different units of the stake. If you were to give a few minutes of that time to a single adult and speak with you, and this is not uncommon for a high council member to come with a speaking partner. So they select a member from the stake to come with them and speak with them. And, if you were to select a single adult to be that speaking partner, you could see some, really great changes that happen in your stake. For one, when singles look at the pulpit and they see there's a single adult speaking there, it provides a sense of solidarity and support. It lets them know, hey, the leadership is really thinking about us. We're not just some forgotten byword here on the side of the road. We're actually important. We're actually special. Special enough for them to think about us and make mentioning of us a part of their program, and to include a single adult in the program. And, having the singles talk about being single and singles issues and the challenge of living the gospel of Jesus Christ in a family-centered church when you don't have a family of your own, that can help encourage married members and the leadership in the different wards to think differently about singles. And that's a positive change as well. Now, I've had some, really positive experiences serving as the speaking assistant for a high council member who's assigned to go and speak at sacrament meeting in the various wards of the stake. I've had singles come up to me afterwards and talk about, it's like, they talk about the challenges they have and they're looking for support for that. And so, being in that role as a stake single adult rep, I can take that information back to our meetings and say, hey, so-and-so has this need. What can we do to help meet that need? I've also had singles come up and they want to get more involved with singles activities, and that's great. I've had, leaders come up to me afterwards and, talk about changes that they had in mindset because of words that I said at the pulpit. So there's very positive benefits that can come from having a single adult serve as a speaking assistant when you're going out to the different units to do your speaking assignments. Again, it doesn't take a lot of effort, but the payoff can be really huge if you pull in the right person and they are inspired by the Spirit to say the right things. Okay, let's talk now for a moment single adult committee, because this is where the bulk of the effort from the stake is going to coalesce to minister more effectively to LDS singles. So first we got to get the vision in line, because like it says in Proverbs, where there's no vision, the people perish. So let's get the vision in line. Many stake leaders view the Stake Single Adults Committee as nothing more than a planning body. Okay, you're here to fill a calendar. You just plan activities. Once you get the activities planned, you're done. And that vision, it's very, very limiting, because if you have that vision and you stick with that, you're never going to reach the potential for meeting the needs of the singles in your stake that you could be. There are blessings that could be extended that will not be extended. There are lives that can be touched that will not be touched. And there are burdens that can be lifted that will not be lifted if you maintain this attitude of all we're here to do is to plan activities. So first you need to get a different way of thinking about the real role of the Stake Single Adult Committee. And you start by truly accepting the idea that people are more important than programs. Well, if you ask somebody, do you think people are more important than programs? Most people are going to say, yeah. But when you look at what we actually do, we're really focusing a lot on programs. So if we really believe that people are more important than programs, why do we focus so much on programs and not people? That's all backwards. We've got to align our actions with a different way of being, and that starts by having a different way of thinking. So we need to start thinking more, hey, people are more important than programs, then I need to make sure what I do is in alignment with that principle. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't plan activities. Activities provide the platform by which you're going to minister to individual singles. So the way this works is you plan the activity, singles come to the activity, and then while they're there, you minister to the singles that are there. As you start meeting the needs of the singles that show up, you're going to see more singles show up because they're going to want to get their needs met. And, one of the key parts of making that work is building what I call a support network. There's basically 3 reasons why singles attend activities, or I should say 3 reasons why they can attend activities, because typically there's only 2 why they actually do. But there's a 3rd reason that we need to implement that leads to more effective ministering of single adults. So the first reason why singles can attend an activity, or why they typically do attend an activity, is what I call the dating forum. They're looking for somebody to date. They don't want to be single. They want to be married. They want to have that special person in their life. And so they're attending the activity to look for somebody to marry. And so what typically happens is they come to the activity. The first thing they do is they look around the room. They see who's here. And typically they don't see anybody that they're interested in dating. And so they leave and they never come back. And that's why your numbers are so low, because people are looking at the activity as a dating forum. The second reason why singles typically attend activities is what I call the activity club. They are so frustrated and tired with the dating scene that they decide, you know what? I'm not going to deal with it right now. I need a break. I just want to hang out with friends and have fun. And so they come with the mindset of what I call the activity club. They're there just to enjoy themselves and have fun and take a break from the challenges of LDS singles life, and especially the dating scene. Now, the problem with these first 2 perspectives is that they're focused inward on self. And, if you allow them to continue, you're basically promoting singles following their own personal agenda. And of course, you're never going to get anything growing when people are following their own personal agendas. Now, in the fireside presentation that I gave last month about habit, and if you haven't seen that, then you can go watch that. It's there available. You can watch that. It's there on the Join the Journey Radio website. It's also on the Join the Journey Radio YouTube channel. And you can go and you'll watch that. I'm leaving that up there because, again, that's information I want everyone to have about habits and how habits lead singles to stay single. So, one of the things I mentioned in that presentation is, you always see these people talking about how, we don't want to come to our activities to find people to date. That's not what we're about. And you see people railing about that, but then nothing ever changes. And why is it that it never changes? Well, I explained that in the previous presentation. Go get there for the more full explanation. The short answer is we're designed to have a habit. People have a habit of thinking about activities as a dating forum or an activity club. And therefore, because of that habit, the nature of habit, they keep thinking about it that way. And the way you change the habit, you don't just tell people not to do it. Because then what happens is, because you have to have a habit, your brain goes and looks for that habit there, and there's no habit there. So then what happens is you end up going back to the habit you had last time, because you have to have a habit. The habit you had last time was thinking about singles activities as a dating forum or activity club, and so nothing changes. The way to change that is to give them something new to form the new habit. You've got to give them the new habit, because you have to have a habit. And the new habit, the new way of thinking that we want to help people to have, is to think about singles activities as a support network. This is the best perspective to have, because unlike the dating forum or the activity club, the support network is focused outward on others. And it encourages singles to put the needs of the group, the community, ahead of their own personal agenda. You're never going to get people to stop wondering if so-and-so isn't the one. You know what I mean? We're always going to be wondering about possibilities for dating when we're associating with other singles. That's always going to happen. You're never going to get rid of that. And I'm not asking you to. What I'm asking you to is to encourage the singles in your wards and state. I'm encouraging you to get their mindset into a different place. That you don't come to activities to service your own agenda first. You come to activities to service first the larger group agenda of ministering to individual needs. To create a support network, a community of singles that supports one another. That is the priority. Now, if you happen to find somebody good to date along the way, hey, that's great. But the main interest is in meeting the needs of individuals and putting the needs of individuals, of other people, ahead of your own. That's the agenda that we should be servicing. And if you plan your activities in view of creating this support network, you get everyone on board with this vision, and you start building it, right? You're no longer just filling the calendar, because now you're going to want to have activities that meet the needs of individual singles so that you can help support them, and you can bring people together to rally around and support the needs of individual singles. When you build a support network and you get it off the ground and you can see it running, it is such a beautiful thing. It is pure magic. It is pure magic. And, this is actually what I believe the Lord wants us to be doing in all of our individual, not just the singles groups, but in the church as a whole. But you go back to the classic scripture that's often quoted about the description of Zion that you find in Moses 7:18. And most of us are really familiar with one heart, one mind. Yeah, we're familiar with that. That's quoted a lot. But then it usually ends there. And it's the last part of the verse that I think is the most telling. What does it say? And there was no poor among them. there was no poor among them. Why was there no poor among the people of Zion? And the answer is, because they were of one heart and one mind, they reached out to one another. They were concerned about each other. They ministered to one another. So when you have not just leaders ministering to singles, but individual singles ministering to each other, that's where the real magic comes in. That's where this thing just comes off and just takes off. It just becomes something really, really beautiful. So yeah, I've seen this work. I've seen this take off. I've gone to where, at the start of the process, you've got, say, 3 people attending a stake activity. And then, a year later, we've got 30. So we've got 10x improvement over the course of a year. So it's not an overnight thing, to be sure. But if you're consistent with it and you keep at it, you can see growth. You can see real growth. And of course, once I got to 30, the 10x level, I ended up moving to a different state because of the whole, life situation that I was in. And so I wasn't serving in that calling anymore. So, hopefully they kept up with it so they would grow. But, I've seen this work with my own eyes. I know that this could work. You just got to get a different vision in mind. You got to get it in everybody. It starts by getting the vision at the stake level with stake leadership, because everything in this church is top down. So if the people at the top don't have the vision, it doesn't matter what the people down below are doing. So you've got to get the people at top on board with that vision of creating a support network. And then from there, everything else will follow as more and more people adopt this vision to support network. It becomes easier and easier to build. And once you get this thing built and it takes off the ground, I'm telling you, this is what we really need. The idea of a support network where people come together with the intention of supporting one another. And this sort of attitude can really filter into the stake single adult committee when they're actually planning their activities. Let me give you an experience that I had about this very, very thing. So I can remember in one planning committee, we were planning a conference that was going to be held for the little regional area that I was in. And, typically, people get into these habits. Again, you got to go back to that, presentation I gave about habits. It's really, it's really profound, and it really explains a lot of what goes on with people. So yeah, go back and look at that. But, people get into habits when they're planning activities. They have a template. And they just say, okay, we're going to have this time in this place, and then this time in this place, and then we're going to do this and this and this, and they get into these habits of planning an activity. Well, I was looking at this and thinking, you know what, we need to take this keynote speech that you got at the front, and we need to move this later on in the day. Because there are people who won't be there at the keynote that will be there later in the day when we're having the dinner dance, and they could really benefit from the keynote speaker if we move it there as opposed to where if we can. And I kid you not, I had to fight tooth and nail for that one little change. Because in the minds of these other people, that one little change. They had their habit of doing things a certain way. And here I am trying to break them out of that habit. And I'm going to tell you, it's easier pulling a tooth out of a cat than trying to get these people to change. But I persisted because I knew, and the reason why I was doing this is not some whim. I was trying to meet the needs of singles that I knew were going to be there for the dinner dance, but wouldn't be there earlier in the day because, they had to work, so they had to get somebody to watch their kid, or, they were traveling from a given distance. And so, it's not like a hop, skip, and a jump for them to just come over to the dance. There's some sacrifice involved. And so they can't come in the morning when we're going to typically have the keynote. They're going to come later in the day. Well, eventually, I hung in there, and eventually the other people in the committee said, okay, you know what? We're going to give you what you want, but we're putting this on you. They made it very clear. It's like, when this falls through and it's disaster, we're going to blame you. And so, I was okay with that because I had faith that this was going to work. And I can't tell you how rewarding it was when we actually had the conference and there were singles who came up to me later And it just, I knew it. I knew it. I so knew it. They thanked me for, moving that keynote address to later in the day. Because, they couldn't be there in the morning, for whatever reason. They had a work commitment. They couldn't get someone to watch their kids, whatever it is that it was. They were thankful that I was, making a change to better meet their needs. And they wanted to make sure that I understood that they appreciated that. And I still remember that to this day. I mean, that was years ago that happened. And I still remember that to this day because, that's really what we're trying to do. What is it that makes a real difference? The fact that you had your calendar filled 5 years ago doesn't mean anything today. But the fact that you can lift a burden, you can touch a heart, you can change a life, that is something meaningful. And that is something that we can do with our stake single adult committees when we start planning with people in mind and not just a program. We're not about the program, we're about the people. And when you get that attitude, you get that vision in mind, you want to build a support network. You want to arrange things so that we're supporting individuals, so that we're helping to fill individual needs, so that everyone is supporting everyone else and building that support network. And once you get that vision in, you can do some really, really meaningful things. Okay, so I've talked a lot about you got to build a support network, but what's the nitty-gritty of it? I mean, what are the details? How exactly do you build this support network? Well, first of all, like I said, it starts with a vision. You got to get everyone on board with the vision of the support network. And then, once everyone's good with this idea that, people really are more important than programs, and we want to build a support network, we want to build this community in which singles are supporting each other, okay? The way you do that, once everyone has the vision, is you start by recognizing that when you attend an activity, your purpose there is to find people whose needs need to be met and to look for ways that you can be of service to them. It's about being outward focused and serving other people. And there's some key things that you can do to help foster that. So leaders lead the way. Okay, leaders lead by example. And they show the singles what the singles need to be doing. And then once the singles follow suit and they start doing the same things that the leaders are doing, that's when the real magic starts to happen. So you've got to make sure that everyone is greeted. When they come in the door, they're greeted. They're made to feel welcome. Okay? You can't have people just coming in and just being kind of just, laissez-faire. I'm just kind of here feeling the room. Because, that is encouraging them to continue with old habits when you leave them to their own devices. And of course, those old habits are those faulty perspectives of the dating forum and the activity club. So if you want to build a support network, you got to make people feel like they're a part of the community. And the first step to doing that is when they come in the door, you recognize them, you greet them, you make them feel welcome. You bring them into the group. Okay? Typically, with the activities that we have as singles, there's some setting involved somewhere. Make sure that no one sits alone. Everyone is sitting with somebody. If you see somebody sitting by themselves, then invite that person to come sit with you. Just come sit with your group, And, if they don't want to move, then you move to them. You move over there and say, well, okay, you don't want to come over here. Can I come over there? Can I come sit with you? Make sure nobody sits alone. Leaders can do this, and they lead by example. Leaders should also be explaining these principles to singles. This is a good reason why, even though this is like a training video for singles leadership, this is a good thing for all singles to be watching because they have a part to play too. They need to get on board with doing the things that I'm not saying that the leaders should be doing. When everyone is ministering to everyone, remember that's the real vision that we see from Zion. There was no poor among them, because everyone was ministering to everyone. So you need to get singles on board with this vision too. So once everyone, is coming together and they greet everyone that comes in, and you're going to see this grow. Okay. Once people feel that they're connected with other people because they're greeted when they come in, they're made to feel welcome, and they're never sitting alone, They're always a part of the group, and you've got people who are interested in them, talking to them, asking about their situation, trying to get to know them as real people and treating them as real people. And that's where the real magic starts. And you start seeing singles themselves do that, who aren't in any sort of leadership position. They're actually doing the same thing. And that's where the magic really takes off and starts happening. So you can see here, once this takes off, there's no need to create a separate ward for the singles. One of the things I've long said on the Join the Journey Radio program is we should do away with all singles wards. In fact, I should probably do another program with that coming up here soon. Because that's a radical idea. What do you mean we should have no singles wards? Yeah, we don't need to create singles wards to minister effectively to singles. We don't need to reinvent the wheel with a special program. So, bye-bye mid-singles program. Just using what is already in your stake in Zion. Okay, what's already there in the handbook. Every stake in Zion can implement this vision. Every stake in Zion can have their own stake singles committee. They have leadership that just does a little bit of things to foster this whole thing going. And I'm telling you, once it gets going, it's magic. It is so magic to see people coming together, connecting with each other, and not in the sense of, gee, I want to date you. I'm looking for somebody to marry. No. They're actually treating people as people. I mean, we're looking at each other as our spiritual brothers and sisters, because that's really what we are, okay? But the key part to all of this, like I said before, the leaders must play their part, because everything's top down. So the leaders have to have their vision. They have to lead by example. Once they do that, and this thing gets going, and singles start, catching that vision, and they start playing that role too, that's when the real magic starts and things really begin to take off as you build a support network. Let's talk for a moment now about the roles of people at the ward level. So we'll start with the bishop. Okay, the bishop, leader of the ward. Every single adult should be interviewed by the bishop or a counselor in the bishopric that's assigned over the singles at least once every 3 months. So, I can't tell you how important this is in the life of a single adult to know that their local leadership is thinking about them and cares about them. I'll give you an example of, from my own life. I know, the last ward I was in, actually, when I moved into that ward, I called ahead to let the bishop know that I was coming. And so, when I came into the chapel there, I sat at the first row of the overflow. So I'm way in the back. And there's the bishop sitting up there on the stand with his counselors, and, meeting's about to start. And I'll never forget what this man did. He got up, he sees me, he gets up, comes off the stand, he walks all the way to the back of the room where I am. And he reaches out and shakes my hand, and he says, "Are you Brother Curtis?" I'm like, Yes, I am. He's like, "We wanted to welcome you to our ward and let you know that we're glad that you're here." And that meant so much to me that he would get off the stand and walk all the way back to the room to talk to me and let me know that I mattered, that I wasn't just a face in the crowd, that I actually mattered, and it made a difference whether I was there or not. And, that sort of caring, what did it take? What did it take from him? 30 seconds, if that? And yet it made a world of difference to me that, it happened years ago, and yet I still remember it to this day. See, lifting burdens, touching hearts, changing people's lives, this is what ministering really means. And so, the bishop reaching out, or one of his counselors, once every 3 months, to every single, it's really easy to do this, okay? Maybe it sounds burdensome, but it's not. Because if what you do is you take a list of the active singles in the ward. Now, I'm going to say you got to start with the actives, because what really happens here is you don't want to start with the less actives. A lot of people get in this mindset. It's like, we want to grow something with the singles. Let's go after the less actives. No, you don't want to do that. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because until you get the support network established, you've got nothing to invite them into. So you're inviting them into really nothing. And of course, if you don't have anything to retain them, they're not going to be retained. And so therefore, everything just kind of falls apart from there. And so this is why going after the less actives typically doesn't do anything, because you're going after them first. When you go after the less actives, I'm not saying don't go after the less actives. I'm saying go after the less actives last. Go after the active singles first. Get them together. Help them to come together and create the support network, the community where singles are supporting each other. Get that going first. Then go after the less actives and bring them into the mix. Okay? So that's the way that this works. And, the bishop or his counselor can, interview every active single in the ward once every 3 months. It's really easy. You just make a list. You divide it into 3 parts. You say, okay, the first month of the quarter, we're going to interview these singles. Second month, these singles. Third month, these singles. It's really easy. Okay? And because the bishop doesn't have to do it by himself, he can split this up between him and the counselor that's assigned over the singles. So one of you is going to interview all of the singles. All the singles are going to be interviewed by somebody once every 3 months. It's really simple. Okay? And so, and you don't have to be more than just a few minutes. Okay? 10, 15 minutes tops. That's all you need. Talk to the singles, ask them about their lives, what's going on in your life, what are your challenges, how can we help, just having a real conversation with a person, as a person, and just, establishing that connection. What people really want is connection. That's what builds a support network. That's what builds this idea of ministering to individual singles. You're forging connections with people. And it doesn't take long to do that, and you don't have to go out of your way. I mean, before the pandemic, an easy way to get these interviews in was during the block schedule. I mean, you're going after the actives first, right? So they're going to be at church, so just pull them out of Sunday school and, say, hey, I just want to talk to you for a few minutes. And there you go. I mean, boom, 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 done. Depending on how many active singles you have, you could do, 1 or 2 a week, and you're done. I mean, it's not a real burden for this to take place. And it makes such a huge difference in the lives of singles. Such a huge difference. So, bishops, I'm asking you, please get on board with this program and let's start ministering to individual people and helping to fill their needs. Now, that said, the bishops aren't the only one at the ward level who need to be, interviewing the individual singles. Organizational leadership. Okay, so we're talking Relief Society president for the sisters, Elders Quorum president for the men. Okay, every single adult should be interviewed by their organizational leader, at least once a month. Again, that sounds, because I understand these are busy people, and it sounds really burdensome. It doesn't need to be like where you meet at a certain place and you sit down. It can be. It doesn't need to be that. You could just text them or call them on the phone or, and again, you only need a few minutes. It just takes a few minutes. And, you connect with them as a person. You talk to them about, what are your issues? What are your challenges? How can we help you? We want to support you. All that sort of stuff. And, you just talk to them as a real person. Okay? Again, divide and conquer. Okay? The Relief Society president doesn't have to do this all by herself. The Elders Quorum president doesn't have to do this all by himself. You've got counselors. Divide and conquer. Split the list up amongst your counselors, and then, you just got a few people that you're going to talk to. If you want to rotate those assignments month to month, hey, do it however you want. The main thing is that the interviews, are there, and they're once a month, and they let the singles know, hey, there's somebody watching out for me, somebody here, somebody cares, and, I can get support for my needs from, the people that I'm here in my local ward. I mean, that's the way it should be, really. That's the way it should be. So, it's not that hard to make this happen. Now, interviews also provide opportunity for some general accountability. I mean, asking what's preventing you from achieving your next essential ordinance is a question that you could legitimately ask to any Latter-day Saint. So, providing some general accountability, especially for us single men, because it's really easy for us to, develop these habits where, we get comfortable with being single. And so providing some general accountability to remind us, hey, you don't want to get in that habit. You want to be looking for that next essential ordinance. that can be a good thing that blesses the life, not only of the men, but also the single sisters. Because, hey, you know what? You can't get that next essential ordinance, of temple marriage by yourself. You gotta have somebody else with you. Now, by the same token, you can have ministering brothers and sisters who also play a role, okay? When you assign a ministering brother or ministering sister to a single adult, you need to make sure that, these are quality ministering brothers and sisters, because it is so important to have that connection. I know the difference, okay? Back from the days when we had home teaching and visiting teaching, and the day when we have ministering brothers and sisters. Okay, all along, I've had good ones that supported me, and I've had bad ones that either didn't do anything, or when they were there, it was very clear they were checking an item off their to-do list. They weren't really connecting with me as a person. And so, yeah, you don't want to be those. You want to make sure that the people that get assigned to minister to singles are going to be the good kind of ministering brother and sister who connect with them as a person, who, you're there to support them, all this sort of stuff, And I can't tell you how refreshing it is when you find somebody who's willing to come to you and talk to you as a real person, who's interested in helping you to overcome your challenges. So talk about the obstacles that singles are having in their lives. Talk to them about the opportunities that they have because of their single status. Too many of us focus on the negative and we don't see the positive. And, a ministering brother or sister can help us to turn that around and help us to focus more on the opportunity than the obstacle. Because there is an opportunity with every obstacle. We just have to look for it to begin to see it. Also, that question that I mentioned before, what are you doing to move closer to your next essential ordinance? Coming from a ministering brother or sister that really cares, I don't think that question is going to be taken the wrong way. And yeah, you know what? People's dating lives can be really personal. They don't really like talking about it all that much, and that's fine. If that's the way it is, I think you should respect that. But, I can't tell you also the sense of support that you can feel by providing some gentle accountability, and helping people to make the changes they need to make in themselves to be more agreeable to a potential marriage partner. And that's something that can happen for both men and women. So, making those changes and getting the help and support they need to make those changes. That's something that can benefit the lives of singles in your particular ward and the ones that are in your particular charge. So, just being that good ministering brother or the ministering sister, that's a level of support that can be very beneficial. And then, of course, you've got ministering by singles themselves. I think the singles themselves play the largest role in effective ministering to Latter-day Saint singles, okay? If you look at, the culture that we have in the Latter-day Saint community, our culture encourages everyone to see singles as something apart from the main group. And the biggest driver for that is the creation of singles wards, which is one of the reasons why I say we need to get rid of singles wards. By creating a separate ward for people that have a different marital status and saying, okay, you guys that are single, you go over here. We're going to separate you from the main body, the main congregation. And, okay, you go over there and you do your thing over there. If you ever get married, you can come over here in the main group and you can be a part of us. That creates a lot of challenges for singles, especially as they get older. Now, if you go over there and it does work for you and you do get married, then hey, that's great. But increasingly, more and more singles are aging out of singles wards. They're aging out of YSA programs. They're aging out of mid-singles wards and programs. Because we're not really attending to people. We're focused on programs rather than people. And we've got this culture that's created that really encourages people to look at singles as somebody separate, somebody not a part of the main, somebody who doesn't belong in the main body of the saints. But what we need is a new vision. A vision where, we're going to create a culture where singles actually belong. And, that's a topic for a whole other presentation that I can give at a future date. But for the purposes of this presentation, we need to have that cultural divide clearly in mind, because it really does affect a lot of the way people interact with each other. We've got to start acting against that. We've got to start having a vision. Okay, I've talked about a vision all along in this presentation, and the main vision is where leaders take the lead, and they lead by example, but they're showing the singles what they themselves need to be doing. And the singles themselves need to have this vision of, when I attend an activity, I'm going to intend it to contribute to other people. I'm going to be outward focused. Who needs my help today? Who can I serve today? Whose life can I help to improve today? Who can I support today? We singles, we're always going to attend activities with this idea, question in the back of our mind about dating. We're always going to have that. And that's fine, as long as it stays in the back of the head. When it comes to the front of the head and becomes the very reason why we're attending the activity, that's where things break down. So you've got to talk to your individual singles. If you're in leadership, you must talk to your individual singles, and you must just say it directly. Look, the reason why we have these activities is to help support one another. And we want you to come to these activities and help us with that effort. We want you to come to these activities and help us support other people. Get them to get the vision. Once they have the vision, then you've got the foundation for things to start to take off. Because if the singles keep coming, wanting to serve a personal agenda, you're not going to get anywhere. Everything's going to break down. So you've got to get them to get this vision that singles activities, the reason why we have them is to provide a forum for us to come together and help one another, support one another, become a united community where we support one another, we build this network of support, and we're there for each other. This is the real success. Conventional wisdom says that success is measured by the number of people who attend an activity. But people who take this view are focused on programs, not people. When you're focused on people, the real measure of success you take is how many people have their burdens lifted because of this activity. How many people had their hearts touched because of this activity? How many lives were changed because of this activity? That's the real marker of success. So those of us who are in leadership and we're responsible for planning and administering activities, we need to change our thinking. We need to get on board with the real definition of success. How many people are helped? How many burdens are lifted? How many hearts are touched? How many lives are changed? That's the real measure of success. I've said all along, if you're a long-time listener to the Join the Journey radio program, you know that I end most of my programs with, I hope what I offer today is helpful to you. I hope that I was able to help somebody. And if I only helped one person, then that's going to be great, because it tells me that I'm successful. It tells me that all of my efforts have been worthwhile if I can help just one person. And that's the attitude that I think all of us need to take in all the, wars or stakes where we're at. We have an activity, we go to an activity. If just one person is helped, the activity is successful. Singles activities are not ends in themselves. We don't organize them and plan them so that we can fill a calendar. That's a focus on a program. You want to focus on people, then you want to focus on, okay, we have singles activities so we can provide a forum for filling the needs of people. And we have activities to provide support to people. We're not trying to get people to hook up. If people do hook up, people are going to hook up if, they connect with each other. That's great. Again, we're not going to prohibit that, but at the same time, that's not the main thrust of what we're doing. We want to make clear to everyone that's not the main thrust of what we're doing. But you can't just say the main thrust of what we're doing is not to find a date. Because all that's doing is getting rid of a habit. And we're designed to have a habit. We have to have a habit. So you have to give them the new habit to replace the old one if you want anything to stick and change to, continue on. So you've got to give people the new vision of what they should be. And the new vision is, We're here to support each other. We're here to support one another. We're here to build a community that supports each other. We're here to build a support network. Okay, I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing I'm running low on time here. So to wrap this up, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. Okay, let's bring this all together. Ministering more effectively to Latter-day Saint singles is really about coming together and being one, and fostering this of not just being one as a singles group, but being one as a group of Latter-day Saints. And transforming the culture to where we don't really separate people out by marital status and say, oh, you're somewhat different, and when you start changing to be like us, then you can come over here in the main group. We change the marker of belonging from being married with kids to making and keeping sacred covenants. And the way we do that is by changing what the culture is centered on. And the culture really needs to be centered on Christ. I can't think of anything that would be, a better thing to center your culture around than our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that doesn't diminish the role of the family in our Heavenly Father's plan at all, not one iota. Because you can be pro-family and not be pro-Christ. But you cannot be pro-Christ and not be pro-family. By being pro-Christ, by centering our culture on Christ, we're going to de facto support the family. That's just going to happen. Okay? But we also get rid of a lot of the identity issues that are really providing the bulk of the challenge for LDS singles in LDS singles life. So, doing what we can to change that culture and just be more welcoming and bringing everybody into the fold. Having one fold, one congregation, one group. As it says in the New Testament, one faith, one Lord, one baptism. That's what we need to come together and be one. Okay? As you go forward and try to implement the vision that I've shared with you in this presentation, you're going to find challenges. It's not going to be easy. But just remember that the quantity of the effort that you expend is not as important as the quality of the interactions that you have with other people. Because at the end of the day, people want connection with other people. So if you can have quality interactions with people as you start to build this support network, that's the thing that's going to carry you through. That's the thing that's going to help to grow. That's the thing that's going to help you to build this community of singles that come together to support each other. We really can come together and be one. Like I've said before, I've seen this work, and when you see this take off and start to grow, it is so rewarding to see people having their needs met and focusing on people and seeing lives touched, because really at the end of the day, that's what matters. Me, myself, having been single for well over 2 decades now, I can tell you I've been to literally thousands of singles activities. I really only remember a small handful of them. And the reason why I remember that small handful is because it was something that happened where somebody reached out to me and lifted my burden. Somebody reached out to me and touched my heart. Somebody reached out to me and made a difference in my life. And that's the real purpose behind singles groups and singles activities and all of this stuff. Why is it that we minister to singles? Because we're trying to change lives for the better. I know the Lord loves every single one of us. I know that He lives and that He's concerned about us. He's aware of our struggles, our challenges, but He's also aware of our potential. He's aware of the opportunities that He has provided us to help us achieve that potential. And He's going to give us support that we need from Him. We just need to come together, get that vision of what can be, help other people to have it, and then start working away on it. Quit worrying about attendance and start worrying about, how can we meet the needs of the people who are showing up? And then how can we use that to come together and forge the basis of a support network that we can then grow and start bringing more people into. And sometimes it's going to take an individual invitation. You're ministering to an individual single adult, and you invite them to come to an activity because they can make a difference. Because you need them. You need their contribution to make the difference in the lives of others that you're trying to make. And when you explain and extend the invitation in those terms, a lot of people, especially if they have a good heart inside, they're going to say yes, they're going to show up, and they're going to want to make that contribution. And when you help them make that contribution, and they start making the connection with the group, and it starts to grow, and then you're going to start to see some wonderful things happen in your local communities with the single adults. I know these principles that I shared with you are true. I know the Lord lives and He loves us. I know that this is His church, that we are guided by a modern day prophet. And, if we will just use the structure that has already been provided, we don't need anything special, just make better use of what's already been provided for us, we can work miracles in the Lord's name. And it's in His name that I share these things with you, and do so in His name, with Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.